Hey everyone, welcome back to Couch Conversations with Sasha Love. I'm your host, Sasha Love, and today we are continuing on with our series called Rediscovering You. And the title of today's segment is Taking Up Space. So, anyone who sees me walking down, you will quickly realize I am not a small person. I'm not a skinny size 0 individual. I take up space, for lack of a better word. And it's always been the case my entire life. And until recently, that has been something that I've always been subconscious about. For much of my life, especially growing up, I had always wanted to make myself feel as small as possible. Not take up too much room, not take up too much space, not say too much, not overdo it. Don't be too dramatic. Try not to be too sensitive. Just trying not to be too anything, just to kind of like fit. I remember one time when I was younger, I don't remember exactly how old I was, maybe early teens, but I remember losing a significant amount of weight, and I can't remember how small I got, but I did lose like a significant amount. And the thought that went through my head when I had realized how much weight I lost was, I'm normal now. Like, I fit in now. I'm like everybody else now. I'm not this big girl that like is different from everybody. And that thought was comforting to me. Like, it felt good to be someone who was like a normal size and could do normal things. And that may sound strange to you. I don't know if any of you can even relate to that comment, or to that experience. But I've reflected on that thought, and it came to mind when I thought about this particular episode, because that is an example and of the opposite of taking up space. Like, that experience is the opposite of taking up space. My perceptions, my thoughts for a long time were contrary, the opposite of taking up space. I didn't want to be noticed. I was afraid of being noticed. I preferred to be in the background. And even now, sometimes I'll still say to some people, like, I just want to stay in my little corner in the background and kind of fade in and just, kind of just observe and take inventory of what's going on around me. I don't want to be the loudest in the room. I don't want to be the center of attention. I don't want to be noticeable because of my size. I don't want people to notice me. I don't want to take up too much space. I want people to be able to pass by me without having to like do the whole like, oh, excuse me, sorry, bumping. And I want to be able to sit in a chair and not worry about any parts of me, hanging out over the chair. I just don't want to take up too much space. And that was the running thought in my mind for many, many, many years. It wasn't until recently when I attained more education about health and wellness and taking better care of myself and eating well, that I started to come to terms with appreciating myself, and mostly physically, but more importantly, internally. For me, taking up space is the challenge that I now practice in my day-to-day life. And what that looks like practically is speaking my mind. For example, if I'm going out with a group of friends and they ask me what I want to eat, the old version of me or an older version of me would say, I'm good. I mean, anything you guys want, like I'll go with the flow. And that sometimes would come from a genuine place, but more often than not, it came from a place of, I don't want to ruffle too many feathers. I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. I don't want to suggest something that no one likes. And I just want to play it safe and just do whatever they want to do. Now, if I have a preference, I have more courage to speak on it. Now, let me also be very clear. There was no switch that went off. So it's not like one day I was just like, you know what? I'm going to take up space. That's the end of it. Done. I'm taking up space. It was a gradual process. There are definitely times, even now, where I have to catch myself like, no. What do you really feel? No. What is it that you really think? No. Like, what is your actual choice? What is your preference? And I'm not always good at it. Sometimes I do fall back into old patterns of, okay, whatever you want. I'll just roll with the flow, roll with the flow. Go with the flow. Anyways, I'll just go with whatever it is that you want. I'll just do whatever it is that you want to do. And I'll do that sometimes, but I'm trying and I'm learning to get better at catching myself and being honest about what it is that I like and dislike. On a deeper level, what that looks like, taking up space, is voicing my thoughts about certain things, especially when it comes to how I feel. If I'm feeling angry, I used to feel like I could not bring that up to the person who I felt so angry with. If someone grieved me or if someone did something against me, I did not have the courage to approach them and say, you made me angry. What you did was not okay. Like, I did not have the courage to do that. In fact, I was afraid, and this comes from past experiences that I've had. I was afraid that if I disagreed, if I showed that I was angry with you, if I showed that I was unhappy with you or unhappy with something that someone did, I was afraid I would lose that friendship. I was afraid that I would lose that relationship. I was afraid that I would be viewed as less than or inferior or viewed negatively in some way. And I was afraid of that. And that fear crippled me so much that I was like, no, I have to be agreeable. I'm sorry, I need to drink some water. Ooh, that was a little dry. But that fear was crippling. And it kept me from being present, from taking up space. I could give you a million examples of how I've been working on this and how I've been progressing through it, but I think I've kind of given pretty decent examples, one on the more superficial side of like likes and dislikes, and one deeper talking about emotions and how I feel when someone does something to me that I don't like or don't appreciate. So what I want to do before I wrap up is just kind of give some practical tips that I've used, that I'm practicing to learn to feel more comfortable taking up space. Number one, you first have to know what's going on in here. For a while, it was hard for me to feel comfortable, take up space. And in some ways, I'm still not fully comfortable. But I first had to know what was really going on. Sometimes I felt uncomfortable because I was feeling self-conscious about myself. Sometimes I felt uncomfortable because of actually the relational dynamics I was having with individuals in a particular space. Sometimes I didn't feel comfortable taking up space because of my own narratives that I was telling myself. Sometimes I didn't feel comfortable because I was told to act a certain way, told to be a certain way, and I just kind of incorporated that into like my daily mantra, you know? So the first step in taking up space is really knowing what's going on with you and processing that and learning how to, how can I say, like learning how to not only communicate it, but stand in it. So in other words, like, I know I'm imperfect and I know that there are certain things I don't do well, but I am not ashamed of it. That's what I mean by standing in it. So it's kind of like standing in your truth, so to speak. Like you've heard people say, stand in your truth, stand in your, stand in your truth, is knowing what's real, knowing what's true about you, knowing what's really going on with you, and standing on that. So hey, while I might not be the best at computers and digital things, for example, I can still be present in a room where we're talking about, let's say, a project related to digital arts and say, I don't think that looks really good to me. That's taking up space. I value my opinion. I value my contribution, knowing full well what my limitations are, knowing full well what my shortcomings are or may be. I still choose to be present and share what it is that I do know, standing on what is true about me. On a deeper level, what can that look like? Standing in the truth of who you are. You are a work of art. You are both a masterpiece and a work in progress. And even through that truth, you can still voice your opinions about things. You can still share your thoughts about things. You can still show up in relationships as who you are. And that is okay. And that is enough. So, number one, knowing what's going on with you. Hopefully I explained that well enough in a way that kind of makes sense. Number two, understand that there is no switch. There is no on and off switch. So there is no going from being afraid to be who you are to us all of a sudden being confident and just like, yes, this is me. Take it or leave it. I mean, if that's you, hey, more power to you. Let me know what your secret was or is. But generally for me, there was no switch. I had to appreciate the progress. I had to learn to roll with the resistance and also appreciate the wins. So one of the things that is a perfect example of this is me sharing my emotions. Like I was mentioning earlier, I was afraid of being real whenever I was not okay with something in a relationship. And that could be any relationship, friendship or otherwise. I was afraid to be real because if I said what I really think and really feel, I was convinced you would walk away. I had to get to a point where I had to face that fear. And even with that fear, have the courage to say, I didn't like what you did. And I'm going to be honest, there were times in certain relationships, I was convinced that this is it. This is the end of the relationship. This is the end of the friendship. This is the end of whatever this is. And it's done. And while it was hard to be in that space, I chose to say, you know what? I want to show up as me. I don't want to be any other version of me anymore. I want to show up as me. And while I'm not perfect, while I'm not sure if I even fully like this version of myself right now in this situation, whether or not I'm even sure I'm even doing this right, I'm going to try to voice what it is that I feel and what I think. So, number one, again, knowing what's going on with yourself. Number two, understanding that it's a process. Sometimes we'll get it right, sometimes we won't, and that's okay. And if I were to add a third point, for the sake of like completeness, and of course, there's so much more to this, And maybe there could be another platform where we can talk more about it and dig deeper. But the third thing I would say about taking up space is give yourself the grace to embrace the experience. And I guess that kind of goes with too, like knowing that's not an on-off switch, the process, but giving yourself the grace to understand, to appreciate the experience. And what do I mean by that is it doesn't always feel good. For me, it really doesn't always feel good. I don't enjoy confrontation. I feel like I handle it better now, but it's not something that I enjoy. And throughout the whole process that I've had, when I've had to confront and I've had to have conversations with people directly, my heart has been racing. I felt like I was about to throw up. I felt sick to my stomach. I felt like I wanted to disappear in that moment. I felt like my attitude was about to come out. I was afraid that I would say the wrong thing and would instantly regret it. There was so much that went into it. And there was a lot of self-soothing I had to learn how to do. There was also just grace and say, you know what? This did not feel good. And also being honest with myself and saying, but I also made the effort to express me, whether it was how I felt, what I thought, my contribution, my ideas, and be okay with that. So that's kind of like, I know it's kind of not perfect, but that's kind of, I guess, my intro to this discussion about taking up space. Number one, understanding what's going on with you. Number two, understand that it's not an on-off switch, it's a process. And number three, giving yourself grace through this process to face all the emotions that come with it, to face the challenges that come with it, to also face sometimes how it may be tempting to retreat and go back to old habits sometimes. Maybe more comfortable to do what you've always done. And give yourself grace as you continue to challenge yourself, as you continue to show up as who you are. Hopefully that's helpful. Hopefully that makes sense. Excuse me. If you have any questions, concerns, or thoughts you want to share, please feel free to drop it in the comments below. If not, go ahead and reach out to me on my Instagram page at CC Sasha Love, or via email at couchconversations with Sasha Love. Oh no, sorry, SashaLoveCC@gmail.com. I tend to switch those every now and then. But yeah, so that's the second episode. And until next time, take care. Bye.